start now. So it is 3:01. I now officially call this meeting of the council to order. We're gonna run through attendance real quick. So if I want to call your name, just like say here. Emmanuel.
Here.
Alyssa.
Here.
Lauren.
Here.
Megan. I don't see Megan. Nick.
Here.
Summer.
Here.
Uma.
Here.
Yana is just she's joining right now. I'm here. Anthony. I see you, Anthony. You're good.
Here.
Maggie.
Here.
Jenna.
Here.
Will. I don't see Will. Ali.
Here.
And Thomas.
Here.
Amazing. All right. Is there anyone from the public wishing to speak? I don't see anyone. Okay. Next up, the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. Anthony.
Alrighty, so for the last meeting, we started off with just a quick logo update and talking a little bit about the Native American panel, which was on March 17th, and also the non-binding referendum, which will be occurring on April 27th. After that, we had a mental health survey sort of results presentation, and we also sort of discussed those results with mass support and what to do with with those results going forward. And we also had we officially created the mental health working group to sort of specialize in that area of work beyond the outreach subcommittee, which was sort of where the work was originally taking place. We had some liaison updates. I provided some updates on Wakefield Vision 2030 and what's going on with that. And I think that was sort of everything that went on last meeting.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting?
I motion.
Thanks, Lauren. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thanks, Uma. Emmanuel.
Yes.
Alyssa.
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
Nick.
Yes.
Summer.
Yes.
Uma.
Yes.
Yana.
Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
And Jenna.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Next up, I kind of want to talk about the transition to moving in person for all of you. That last school committee had a lot going on. So they talked a lot about moving to a fuller hybrid for high schoolers and moving into full in person. So I want to hear what everyone's thoughts were, if anyone's feeling anxious about it or they're excited, what everyone's thoughts, and what do they need, what's up? Anyone? There's no one has any thoughts, okay.
Oh, I have a thought. So
Okay.
I have been a full remote student since March. And I just transitioned back to hybrid learning yesterday. And I'm really excited for the full in-person learning return. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm really enjoying being back in school.
Definitely. 100%. Anyone else have thoughts?
I'll go. So I've been fully in person since September. I'm a little nervous about it. Not necessarily the longer hybrid model, but definitely going back, like mixing the cohorts. Just it's a lot more people than I'm used to, but at the same time, I'm also kind of excited because I feel like it's like kind of just a little bit of a sense of normalcy that we'll see where, restrictions are starting to lift, more vaccines are being distributed. So I'm a pretty balanced mix of nervous and excited.
Yeah, that's totally understandable. Yeah, I go back to fully in person April 6th. So I'm nervous for that one, but I'm excited to see all my friends, especially like the end of my senior year. Anyone else? Any thoughts, anxieties? If not, another thing happened in school committee on Wednesday was the logo. They officially voted to change it, which is super exciting. Congrats to all of us. We helped the discourse go along in town, so that was good. So Lauren, do you want to do a quick update on what's happening with that?
I would love to. All right, let me pull up my notes. Okay, so there was March 17th, there was a panel discussion with local Native American tribal leaders. So I watched it. I actually watched it a few times. Just it was a lot to kind of soak in. It was really great because it gave insight on their perspectives on the topic. And those, in my opinion, are really the voices that need to be heard the most during this conversation. It was a really great opportunity for productive conversation to happen within the community. So then that night, shortly after the panel discussion ended, a community survey was sent out, and then the following day, there was a student survey sent out. So, you know, members of our community and student body could kind of weigh in on the issue and give, you know, their opinions and their feelings about the whole conversation. And then on Tuesday, I think it was the 20, I forget the date, but this past Tuesday, the school committee voted 5-2 to discontinue the use of Native American imagery for the mascot. And then on April 27th, which is the town election day, there will be a non-binding question on the ballot. So community members can weigh in and either vote yes, they support the use of Native American imagery, or no, they feel that it should be discontinued. So I think that's all I have. Jack, or if anyone wants to add anything to that, please feel free.
Totally, yeah. So anyone have any questions or anything you want to add to that? No? Yeah.
I'm just curious, did anyone else get to see the panel of the tribal leaders? Yeah, I'm seeing some people. Yeah, that was very emotional. I was, that made a big impact on me, so.
Yeah, it was emotional. It was very emotional and it was eye-opening. Yana, do you want to say something?
Yeah, wait, you just said the word right out of my mouth. I was about to say eye-opening. It was so powerful. And like Lauren said, I had to watch it more than once because every single time I just got like a new, like, I don't know, like, it was just like the things that they said I wouldn't have even thought of before. And we've been like working on this for almost a year in it more, you know what I mean? It was amazing. And I sent it out to all my friends, which they all watched, and with their families too. And they were just surprised. They just like didn't think of like things like that. You know what I mean? Like Lauren said, it's interesting to see in their point of view too, which is really important.
Absolutely. Anyone have any other thoughts about that? Okay, see none.
So Jack, can you just educate everyone what a non-binding vote is? Because I think even adults are confused. Like, what is this vote on the 27th, and what does that mean?
Yeah, so basically, there are two types of ballot questions. So usually every 2 years, we have these things called binding ballot questions, which are basically if the citizens vote yes or no on a certain initiative, then it becomes law. It happened during the early 1900s during the thing called the Progressive Era, where citizens wanted more input on how to make laws. So basically, citizens have the opportunity every 2 years to make laws. They vote on a ballot question. But this year in town, we have something called a non-binding ballot question, which is basically like an opinion poll, where any voter who is voting in the town election will have the opportunities to say if they agree with the high school logo or if they want to change. So it holds no power whatsoever. It's basically just an opinion poll, a larger opinion poll.
Thank you. Very good description. And then I see that we have our school committee member, Mrs. Guida here. So maybe talking about the next steps, maybe Ms. Guida, if you could give us the next steps for school committee with the policy team on how to formulate going forward.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for allowing anyone to pop in, right? But yeah, so thank you for the updates there, Lauren and Jack and Yana. Thank you for your comments, and all of you for watching and participating. Obviously thus far, but watching, like Catherine said, watching the panel, even for someone like me who's immersed myself into research and understanding, was truly eye-opening. The discussion was uncomfortable and hard. We made some mistakes, right? we meaning the school committee and administration, that's hard to hear. But so much just really heart and emotion involved in their perspective, which really had us all kind of sit back and just really think about a lot of things. So going forward, you guys gave a great recap of what happened at our meeting on Tuesday, but going forward, I'm not sure if you understood or were able to hear the details of the resolution, in part, sort of a resolution that was passed as a motion, and that would be to retire the Native American imagery related to mascot logo, and then to keep the name, our name Warriors, right? And then also we made an apology, made an apology to our Native American panelists and really our Native American and Indigenous people across our nation. So in order, I'm sure you guys understand that in order for this to really we have to go through a process of decommissioning and, we don't just start ripping up fields and taking down things and telling people that, you can't wear gear anymore with our logo on it. So the next step for the Policy and Communications Subcommittee is to really go through the details of how this happens. And we actually had that ready to present on Tuesday, but we decided to go with a simpler motion so that we didn't have, another 3-hour-long discussion going back and forth. So we're going to iron out the details in our subcommittee meeting, and that has to do with a few parts. So education and curriculum infusion will be a part of that. I think that both pro logo and retire logo sort of camps have both agreed that we need to be better educated and informed about the Indigenous people in our area. So that's one part of it. Another part of it is commissioning a group, sort of a working group to move forward and decide what logo best represents the town of Wakefield. And just going forward, we'd obviously include representatives from this council to be a part of that. So you'll be hearing, from a member of the school committee. Unfortunately, my term ends on April 27th. So things will look a little different and we'll get shaken up a little bit, but I can guarantee you guys that you'll have another subcommittee member who will be committed to the work. So I'm trying to think what else might be in that. Just really in terms of how this happens, in terms of production going forward. So we commit to not producing any more gear, or I'm trying to think of another word to categorize it as, but from this point on, no production of gear with the Native American imagery and the logo, right? So whatever has been ordered thus far, most towns and districts who are dealing with this do that in sort of a normal part of replacement and repair, so that we aren't taxing and taking money out of the budget to sort of enforce the motion and the policy. So it's done in a tiered approach and a phased approach, but that doesn't change the commitment that we've communicated at our meeting. Getting to April 27th, so you guys are aware and you can talk to your parents and voting adults that it's important to, if this is an important issue to you and you want to see the motion upheld, it's important to support the candidates that are supportive of the decision that we made. Unfortunately, it kind of turns into politics. You guys understand that, I know very well. And so we hope that the decision that was made will follow through, but there are some pieces that we're concerned about. So that's the steps going forward. At our next school committee meeting, we hope to sort of have ironed out the rest of the resolution that will give the community a little bit more detail about how this is, and just to give them confidence around all the questions that are still sort of circulating out there, and for you all to understand as students and as youth of Wakefield what that means for you. Is there any questions about any of that? Okay.
Great summary, thank you.
Oh, thank
I
you.
I have one question. So
Yeah.
as kind of student representatives, and being youth leaders in the town, how can we best assist the school committee and the subcommittee in, putting the word out and having these conversations? What would be most helpful to the school committee during this process?
Yeah, thank you, Lauren. Like I said, if you guys are comfortable, this is really what you're comfortable with personally, and putting yourself out there in terms of how you would like to see our community members vote. I don't know if the youth council would want to, it's hard when it comes to election to align yourself with candidates. That's really a personal and family issue. I think that you guys could talk about amongst your families. But in regards to the youth council supporting the work, really just maybe once we communicate the details of the resolution, communicate that to your peers so that your peers understand sort of the details of what's going on. And I know one of my sons was at lacrosse yesterday, and they were confused about wearing the image, their gear, and they just ordered gear already, and that's all fine, right? It's already been ordered. We're not going to tell our athletes this spring that they can't walk onto the field with their gear that they've already ordered. So any confusion like that, we just try to clear that up. So you can sort of just be the liaison between, but I would just kind of stick to, Catherine, I know that you'll mentor the youth council on this, but really stick to the facts of what is being presented, right? And then personally, obviously, you can talk to your families and decide what's best for you or them. But our liaisons are Jenna and Lauren, right? Okay, so Jenna and Lauren, I can get in touch with you sort of offline about the resolution, and then just try to make sure that you understand it when we get to that point. Is that okay? Okay, great.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Lauren or Jenna, maybe you can then email the wording of the resolution to the rest of the youth council so that they have that in writing. But I think that makes a lot of sense to clarify, for the youth council to be liaisons and clarify, misperceptions that, oh yeah, they have to rip up the field and change uniforms, and that's not the case. And there are, like Mrs. Guida said, there are a lot of communities that have gone through this recently. And, like I've said, my husband's a native of Winchester, and they've recently gone through it. So there are protocols, and we're not the first.
Absolutely. And we look to those other districts and community to sort of guide how we do things, because we can already see sort of how it's played out in their district or town. So we are amongst, other towns and company who have gone through processes similar to ours. And there is a lot of support for us, and obviously with our legislators as well. So
Definitely, thank you.
more to come. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Maggie.
So a bunch of people asked me yesterday, because we had school spirit day yesterday, and some people wore like the warrior image. So is it still like okay to wear like the Native American image, or should we stop wearing it?
Maggie, that's a great question. Right now, Maggie, I think that it's a personal decision. Whatever exists, with the Native American imagery exists out there, and there is an associated pride with that. When I was dropping my kids off at school, the kids are wearing sweatshirts, and there is no malicious intent with this at all. But I think that it's a personal decision at this point, and it's really speaking to what we produce and how we sort of represent ourselves going forward. I'm sorry if that's a little gray, but we can't as a school committee say, you can't wear this, that, or, any other thing. And I think over time, I think that you'll see that change in, students and community members will be respectful of sort of how we're progressing forward if all stays this way.
Yeah, I think that's a Really good point.
Yes. Anyone else have any questions for Guido? Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay. So next up, I want to talk to you all about voting in the elections. We're going to continue on with this theme. So I'm going to share my screen so we can all see my slides. Give me one sec. Okay. PowerPoint. Great. Okay. So I kind of want to first talk about when these type of elections happen. You guys all probably see every year signs on lawns and buttons, stickers, shirts, whatever, about certain elections, certain candidates. So usually every year we have a town elections. That's your town council, school committee, DPW, WMGLD, etc. And every 2 years, you will have your state rep and state senators up for election. Your congresspersons. So for us, it's Seth Moulton. And your senators are up every 6 years. It really depends on when they are elected. So this past year was Ed Markey, and in 4 years will be Elizabeth Warren, and the governor is up every 4 years. And then every 4 years is the presidential and presidential primary and general elections that happened last year. There was the Democratic primary and the general election, and 4 years ago, the Republican and Democrats had a primary. So that's when they happen. This year specifically, we have an election on April 27th, which is like the last Tuesday in April. You will be voting from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and all these people and positions will be up for re-election. And of course, is the ballot question Lauren was talking about. And so what I think is really important to us is registering to vote. Not all of you are 16 and up, but a lot of you are. And usually if you got your permit, you probably registered the DMV. But if you didn't, it's super easy. I will drop in the chat. For some reason, there's no chat in the Zoom. But if you go to the Secretary of State's website, it takes 5 minutes. You just register with your permit or license number, or you can download a form and do with your social number and just bring it to Betsy at Town Hall. It takes 5 minutes, super easy. And if you don't feel comfortable registering with a party, you definitely don't have to. It's not a big deal. You can register as unenrolled. And because of how Massachusetts laws are set up, you will still be able to vote in primary elections. You will have to choose you want to vote Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green, etc. You just have to choose when you get there. But you can still register as unenrolled if you don't feel comfortable registering with a political party. And I just want to kind of talk about your rights as a voter. Right now, there's a lot of discussion about different bills in Congress, but also in the State House. So right now, as we see it, as long as you're 18 and older, you are allowed to vote, no matter if your skin color, your gender identity, whatever, you are allowed to vote. You have rights to vote according to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In some cases, you may be required to cast a provisional ballot, which basically like a ballot that does not go into the machine, because sometimes you have to you might not fill out your census, or you might not have paid certain taxes, or not taxes, but you have to fill out your census or other things, and the town's supposed to verify if you can vote or who you are. So you might have to cast a provisional ballot. And in our state, you are not required ever or at all most of the time to show a picture ID. In some states, you're required to have an ID to vote, but here you are not. But in some cases, once your first time voting, you may be required to show a photo ID just for them to know that it's actually you. But after your first time, you will most likely never have to show your photo ID ever again. Unless sometimes if you don't fill out your town census, they may ask you for your ID. But most of the time, you will not be required to give your ID. And lastly, if you're in line by 8 p.m., you are perfectly still allowed to stay in line. They can't kick you out. You were there. But if you get there after, you were not allowed to vote. But if you're there before 8 p.m. and you're still in line, you're perfectly allowed to vote. And if they're not allowed to kick you out whatsoever. And then what not to do. Most polling stations, you are not allowed to wear any sort of political clothing or accessories into the polling station. You're allowed to wear them outside, but once you go within 100 feet, I think, of the location, you're not allowed to wear any buttons, t-shirts, hats, or anything. They will ask you to either cover it or take it off before you go inside, just to keep the neutrality of the polling location. Back in the 1900s, they created systems such as like the Australian ballot, where no one should know who you vote for, or no one should know unless you tell them. So that's why you really are not allowed to wear that whatsoever. And you are allowed to participate in some sort of standout or visibility. You have to stay a certain distance away and listen to the police and the town clerk. Just make sure you're following the rules, because election rules are very tight and stringent. Make sure you're following all the rules so you don't get in trouble. And also, please don't be mean to your poll workers. I worked the polls a few times. Like, some people are mean. Don't do that. Just be nice. Yeah. And then a few FAQs sometimes I get. One is, does my vote even count or matter? Obviously, yes, it does. And a lot of times, especially in these town local elections, it comes down to one, two, or three votes. And if you are voting, that means you have power, and the power you hold means to who's going to represent you for the next few years. So please, if you're 18, vote as much as you can, and you'll probably get a sticker. And stickers are pretty awesome. And sometimes you get free stuff, like a Starbucks will give you a free coffee. So I would highly suggest voting and getting a sticker.
But Jack, you don't mean vote as much as you can in the same.
No, I know. I mean, like every election, make sure you vote. Not like vote. Don't vote 3 times. That's illegal. But vote every election that you have the opportunity to vote in. And this is a great thing in Massachusetts. We have something called a pre-registration program, which I talked about a few slides ago. And I turned 18 on April 18th. But since I pre-registered, I'll be able to vote on April 27th, which is super awesome. Even though the voter registration deadlines, it's April 7th. So if you're going to turn 18 before the election, but after the deadline, make sure to pre-register by April 7th, and you will be on the voting rolls and be able to vote on April 27th. Or if you turn 18 before the primary next year, still make sure to pre-register because you'll be able to vote then, which is super awesome. And I'm really grateful we have that because I'm super excited to vote in a few weeks. So yeah, anyone have any questions about that? I know there's some detail in there. So any questions or thoughts on voting elections? Yeah.
So Jack, if someone's not 18, can they still be a poll worker?
Yes, if you're 16 or older, you are allowed to be a poll worker. You can either email Betsy or on the Secretary of State's website, they have a place where you can find any open poll working jobs. And a lot of times, like I worked in Stoneham, so like they posted there and I just drove over 10 minutes and I worked the polls. So anyone can do it if you're 16 or older. It's actually great. And I got paid like $50, so.
Yeah, you get paid. And Betsy Sheeran, she wanted to be here, but couldn't be here today to explain all this. But if anyone is interested, let me know and I'll connect you to Betsy. Or Jack.
So any questions? But yeah, if you're 16 or older, you probably registered at the DMV, but definitely if you haven't or you don't remember, just go to the Secretary of State's website, just Google Secretary of State Massachusetts, and you'll be able to check your voter registration or register to vote online. It takes like 5 minutes. So any questions or thoughts on voting/elections? And I think we'll continue to be posting stuff on our Instagram about this and making sure people know and lead up to the registration deadline, which is April 27th, I think at 8 p.m. So that's the deadline to register. So, Catherine, do you want to say something?
No, I just think it's great as a youth council, if you being the youth body for elected officials to encourage your other to encourage your peers to get out and vote and understand the process. Because I even learned something from Jack today, but I don't think a lot of people understand this whole pre-registration and other things that they can do to be involved.
Yeah.
So one thing, sorry,
Lauren, you go. I'll move on. So
I talked with Mrs. McLeod today, the high school principal, and she's going to put something in the morning announcements. I think the high school provides forms in the guidance office for pre-registration. And so in the morning announcement, she's just going to say, where to go, remember to vote, and things like that. And then another thing that I want to add is that I feel like with elections, it's so easy to kind of get caught up in, conversations. They can be pretty uncomfortable. But just make sure, when you're of voting age, most of us aren't able to yet, but just make sure that you vote for the people that reflect your views and that you think would best serve you as a community member. Try not to vote who your parents are telling you to vote for. It's okay to disagree as long as you're respectful. So just make the right choices for you and have those healthy conversations. I think it's really important.
Totally agree. My voice cracked. I totally agree, Lauren. Anyone else have thoughts or questions? Okay, seeing none, Lauren is going to give an update on our mental health working group. We had a meeting yesterday, and Lauren's going to go through some slides and stuff.
Yes. So I'm the chair of the unofficial chair so far We still have to do that officially. But of the newly formed mental health working group. So yesterday we met with members of the Galvin student support staff and Mr. Colantoni, the Galvin principal. And we talked about the Galvin survey results, which we'll share with you in a few minutes. Then we talked about next steps that were pretty similar to the next steps that we discussed with the high school guidance department, of possibly making a video to show the staff talking about the mental health survey results, which I think is super important because the staff members, it's their job to kind of help us, and this way they'll know what's kind of, going on. So we'll be doing that pretty soon. And then hopefully sometime next week, we'll be meeting with the high school guidance department and administration to talk about the same thing. So getting that video out and then possibly attending a short staff meeting just to talk about main takeaways and answer questions. And then after we do that, we're probably going to present our findings and our takeaways to the school committee, which is super exciting. Just especially where we're going to be transitioning learning models. So longer hybrid days or fully in person. I think it's super important for our trusted adults to kind of know what's going on and know where we're at so they can help us and we can exceed our fullest potential of learning. So I'm going to share the slideshow that we presented to the middle school student support staff yesterday. So and the members of the mental health working group are myself, Jack, Alyssa, Ali, and Yana. But if anybody wants to join a meeting or, just kind of see what we're doing, feel free to shoot me an email.
Well, Lauren, you forgot Nick.
And Nick, I'm so sorry. I have something pulled up on my screen, so it was hard for me to go through, but yes, and Nick as well. All right, so I'm going to share this presentation. All right, so this is what we presented to them yesterday. So first we're going to start with positive results, and then we're going to move through areas of improvement and then takeaways.
So 76% of Galvin students said they are enjoying their classes more or equal to previous school years, which was 478 students. And based on the responses, this is largely due to smaller class sizes, having less time physically in the school building, the fact that they're able to learn new skills still, and they have stronger connections with their teachers than in previous years.
So 79% of students reported feeling connected to their teachers more than or equal to previous school years. So we contributed this to a larger level of understanding and a same storm, different boat kind of situation in schools.
So 84% of students reported feeling happy with their grades more than or equal to previous school years out of a total of 510 students. 83% of students reported remote learning has stayed the same or gotten easier for them in terms of difficulty out of a total of 522 students, and 81% of students reported feeling motivated to do well in school more than or equal to previous school years out of a total, again, of 510 students. And this is mainly due to the current learning model that works best for them, better connections with teachers, and more time for extra help.
So we saw a few different areas for that kind of need attention. So about 22% of students reported worrying about their physical health and mental health more than previous school years, and 34% of students reported worrying about family or friends more than the previous school year. And these worries kind of include their individual and family health, mask wearing, social distancing, and sanitization. And some tips we've thought of were ensuring that all students and staff are following safety protocol and providing ideas of ways to set boundaries to ensure comfort levels are being respected.
About 42% of students reported feeling more stressed about school compared to previous school years, which was 264 students. And the main contributors to this were the different routine and schedule, which, as we know, is changing now, and it has changed before a few times. Elevated health concerns, obviously due to the pandemic, and increased isolation. And some tips we had were to ask what can be done to help, not just in terms of school, just in emotional support as well, to ensure that all protocols are being followed COVID-wise, make sure people are wearing their masks and things like that, and stronger support from teachers and staff.
So 20% of students reported that they are feeling more isolated or sad compared to previous school years. So some contributors that we identified as causing this are quarantine, not seeing family and friends as much as they usually would, fully remote students feeling disconnected from others, and some tips that we had to lower this number is to increase teacher and staff outreach to students. So talking about things not just about school, and to provide ideas to stay connected.
82% of students reported getting 7 or more hours of sleep per night out of a total of 516 students. And main contributors to this are lots of homework, a lack of structure / routine, or worrying about school and changes in routine that happens constantly nowadays. And tips to prevent this are no technology before you go to bed, getting your homework done early and having a set schedule, having an earlier dinner, winding down and relaxing more often and earlier, and limit big conversations like with your family or friends. Just try and keep things simple.
And we saw about 9% of students report that they have lost social connections with friends or family during the pandemic. And some contributor to these are, of course, being cautious about the pandemic and being fully remote. And some tips we thought and saw were providing ways to stay connected safely and increase teacher and staff and peer outreach to quarantine or fully remote students.
And there's obviously a lot of things that come with Zoom that are good things and bad. And the top 3 difficulties about being on Zoom a lot for the students were being distracted by phones or other tabs, or technology issues like Wi-Fi or microphones not working, things like that. And some tips we had were creating a phone station or a place to put anything you could be distracted by on Zoom calls away from where you can reach them, and creating a working space that's quiet and comfortable where you can make sure you have everything you need to get your work done well.
So this question asked respondents if they think that they are managing their stress during the pandemic in a healthy way. So 55.8% of respondents said yes, that they think they are managing their stress in a healthy way. 36.3% of respondents said that they are not sure, and 8.9% of respondents said that they are not managing their stress in a healthy way. So some tips that we had for this were providing suggestions for healthy coping skills and having students talk with their peers on how they cope so that their peers can gain ideas and input into how to manage their stress healthily.
So this question asks, on an average day, how many hours do you spend on screens such as your phone, computer, TV, etc., not on a school Zoom and mainly for leisure time? So out of the responses, 8.7% said 1 hour or less, 19.8% said 2 hours, 21.1% said 3 hours, 24.1% said 4 hours, 12.2% said 5 hours, and 14.1% of responses said 6 hours or more. And tips that can help with this are screen time limits on devices, not having technology in bed or right before you go to bed, and finding more ways to relax by not using technology and getting outside more.
Yeah, so some main takeaways from these surveys. I think the biggest thing that we all noticed is that the responses were relatively positive, definitely more positive than the high school, which I think is just such a good testament to the work that the staff at the Galvin is doing. But there are still areas that need improvement. And although that, most of the areas of improvement are small percentages and small amounts of students, those are still students that are struggling. And I think when we look at all of this data, it's so easy to look at these as percentages and just numbers, but it's so important to keep in mind that they are still students. I think teacher connections are something that could definitely be improved, even without COVID, that aren't school related. So whether that's talking about March Madness or what your favorite song is, or just something like that, that can be so helpful for students to feel connected. just without school, and, get to know their teachers on a more personal level. And then I think the largest takeaway is just providing resources to students and parents. And I know we did this on our social media about different hotlines and people to contact if you're struggling. But I think pandemic specific and school specific resources would be so helpful. I think our job as youth council members is to identify the issue and then spark these conversations that really need to happen. So I believe that is our last slide. So I'm going to stop screen sharing. So I think, first of all, I kind of want to hear people's reactions to this. Like I said, I know I was kind of surprised about, or pleasantly surprised about how positive the responses were. So I'm wondering if anybody else felt that way, if anybody has any questions. So I'd like to open up the floor for discussion. Anthony, go ahead.
I was with the same thing in the sense that I completely agree with you that these results were a lot more positive than that's a really good sign. I just also completely agree that similar to how we address the high school results, there are those small percentages of people who may not like that 10% who said they're not really addressing or coping to these current circumstances in a positive light. Those types of figures, even though they may be small percentages, those are actual people. And we definitely need to emphasize the fact that those are people who do need help.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anybody else? Any questions, thoughts? Yeah, Manuel, go ahead.
Yeah, so like while thinking about that, I was also thinking about the fact that like the high schoolers also have like a whole other bunch of factors, whether it be like, some of them are focused on colleges and some of them have like jobs that they work at more often than the middle schoolers. Whereas like there's still, like as Anthony said, like there's still the point that there are still people who are struggling and stuff. And so I don't know, like things we could do in order to help them, because I know that a lot of people, like some people are like, oh, what is the survey really going to do? But like find different methods and ways that we can help these students. I'm not sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Catherine, were you going to say something?
I just really like the tips towards the last few slides. I think starting with Nick, when really kind of these are the problems, but these are suggestions that we have. And sometimes I do a lot of those because I have 6th and 7th grader, and I suggest a lot of those things. But if they were to come from people like you, if there was some way for you all to do, present some of this data and some of your tips in a video that could be shown either at Get Up Galvin or in the eye care classes or something, I think that would make a big difference so that they understand like these are challenges you're having, but here are some good strategies, because they're going to hear it a lot better from you than their parent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons that we want to present this to the staff at both schools, because, I think it's one thing if they hear it from their bosses or from, their coworkers, but I think if students bring it to them, I just think it'll shine a completely different light on it that's much needed. So I'm super excited about having, more work. I mean, do you hand?
I was asking like the tips when you form them, were like tips from the students themselves, or like were they tips that you came up with after getting the results?
Yeah, so when I looked at the results, I kind of interpreted them and then put those tips in from a student perspective. I think there was one point on there where it said, provide an opportunity for students to have conversations with other students and teachers about ways that they've found to cope with their stress and their anxiety through school. So then, they can learn from each other, not just from, high schoolers that aren't experiencing this at the middle school. That's where I think the middle schoolers, can really have a voice in this, because you guys obviously know this better than anyone. So, yeah.
That's what I was going to ask, if Thomas, Maggie, or Jenna have any thoughts on this or what to do with these results besides what they said. Or Ollie. You were part of the presentation, so
yeah. So I just wanted to say that I'm really happy about these results, overall how positive they are, but I agree with what everyone has said about this, that there is room for improvement and that we have to kind of tailor these things to the students and the Galvin itself, because every student is different and every student is feeling differently. And although that we presented this presentation through percentages and etc., these are real students who are identifying like this, and it's important that we as a youth council that we empower them and we help them in the best way that we can.
And one thing too that might help when you're giving, sometimes I'm often giving statistics and presentations to either parents or young people or teachers, and you know, using you guys know what infographics are, so putting the pictures to the numbers. And then a lot of times I'll do analogies too. Like I'll say, you know, we have this many students at the high school who have suicidal ideation. And I'll say, you know, that's this many homerooms or this many school buses filled with students. So they can kind of switch, you know, they, instead of that percentage, they start to see, oh, wow, that's the whole, you know, right side of the 5th grade wing, you know, of students that are going through that. So it's another tip.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Lauren. Anything else on the mental health working group? Okay, so next, communications outreach subcommittee. What's going on? You guys have a meeting on Monday, so like, what's happening?
Yeah, we do. We've been really working to put out mental health resources. So for those of you who follow the Instagram or like the Facebook, you've probably seen all the stories we've been putting out, and we've been putting links in our bio. So essentially every resource that we've put out, everyone who follows us has access to, and we've put the contacts for Galvin and WMHS guidance out there. We've put hotlines like the National Suicide Hotline, the Wakefield Student Support website, all kinds of different things, local, national. And we've also recently posted about voter registration. So basically everything Jack said, just on our Instagram, and that's there. We put the link up for people to register. So if you guys have friends who are looking to register, we have that link up and they can find it through us instead of looking on their own. And that's basically the whole update for today. If anyone else wants to jump in. Yeah, go ahead, Anthony.
I'm sorry, I just have one quick update on the newsletter. So I sent that over to Ms. McLeod last Sunday, and it should be hopefully in next this upcoming Sunday's parent or high school parent email. And Ali, I can send that over to you as well for the PTO parents. So we got our next newsletter coming, and hopefully I am hoping to include some more like hopefully it'll be in like the town template and have maybe possibly some other new aspects to it instead of just the doc itself, which I'm super excited about.
That new template looks really good, Anthony. I'm excited. It incorporates some of Yana's vision. It's, stay tuned. Oh, I do have one thing around communications. The youth action team meets next Thursday at 1 o'clock. And they were wondering if a representative from the youth council could come to their meeting, because they put together the news flush and the bathroom buzz, and they want to be able to incorporate some things. I know, Ollie, you just sent me something for the middle school news flush, but they'd like a kind of a connection with you all so that they can communicate what they're doing, because they're going to actually do the 100 warrior faces, you know, that project they did at the middle school. They're going to do that at the high school. So they just kind of want to connect with all of you about what they're doing. Is there anyone available to go next Thursday at 1?
I should be able to go.
Okay, Alyssa, you can go. We'll let Kara know.
Yeah, sorry, I have school, but yeah, anything else communication wise? Okay, I just want to tell everyone in 10 minutes I have to go because I have a job interview. So in 10 minutes, Lauren's gonna take over for the rest of the meeting. So next up on the agenda is a discussion with the Good News Subcommittee. So Jenna started this back a few weeks ago, months ago, and I kind of just wanted to talk about that and get some membership going. So yeah, so Lauren, do you want to start us off by talking about the subcommittee?
Yeah, so I am so excited about it. I think it's going to be so great. And I feel like it's honestly really just what Wakefield needs right now. It's just good news about just stuff going on around town, especially if it's youth centered. So last week, or it was right after our last meeting, Jack sent out a Google form. So if you'd like to be a part of it, you can fill that out. Jenna will be leading it, but I think it would be awesome if we had an older leader, maybe a high school leader, to kind of do that with her, so a lot of people could get that leadership experience of, you know, making an agenda, getting the Zoom link, just where I think the youth council is going to be around for a while. So I think it would be great if we could get a lot of people involved with that. So I think it would be great if we could maybe work with WCAT to put something together, like a live stream or something like that. So if you are interested in that, feel free to fill out that Google form. Jenna, do you have anything to add since you'll be kind of running it?
No, not really. I'm just really excited to work with anybody who wants to help us.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see all the good things that, you know, we have going on, and then we can kind of shine a light on that. And I think we'll work really closely with the Good News Subcommittee and the Communications and Outreach Subcommittee, so we can kind of put that stuff out so as many people can see it as possible. So yeah, so if you're interested, fill out that Google form, and then we can kind of get rolling with it.
Yeah, the Google form is in your email, but if you can't find it, just email me and I can get you all signed up.
And in the meantime, if anyone hears of anyone doing something in there, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your class, someone you know that's doing an Eagle Scout project, or someone that's, you know, doing some community service or doing anything great, please pass that along to Jenna and her soon to be co-chair of the of that committee.
Yeah. Anything else on the Good News Subcommittee? See done. Liaison updates from everyone. Has anyone had any good meetings? Ali, how's the PTO going? Since you just switched over there.
Yes, so I have a meeting. I believe it is 1 second. It's on Monday. I have a meeting with the PTO, so I'll be sure to update all of you at our next meeting on that.
Great. Anyone else have any fun updates? Anthony?
Recently on Wednesday, I had my second meeting with the advisory committee for Wakefield Vision 2030. And we sort of just went through, looked at some of the results of the first survey, and we were looking through like last edits for the second survey. And I think we are still on track to hopefully have the second public forum, I believe at some point in April. There hasn't been a definitive date yet. And actually, I believe it probably will be the day after the vote, so April 28th. I don't think that's confirmed, but that's very close to being confirmed. And I'm hoping that we can get a lot of youth representation there. It was really great having some members of the youth community from last time.
Awesome. Oh, wait, I have to go, but Lauren's gonna take over for now. But I'll see you all at the next meeting. Bye, everyone. So Lauren,
Good luck, Jack.
thanks.
All right. Does anybody else have any liaison updates? Anybody? So I know for me and Jenna, we're hopefully going to be working with the school committee pretty soon about our mental health initiative. So we will totally keep you all in tune with that. Does anybody else have anything? All right, I'm seeing none.
Is anyone having any difficulty with their youth, with their liaison position and wanting? Oh, Emanuela, I gave you those two options. Did you?
Yeah. I think I sent you an email. I don't know if you saw it or not a while ago, but it was like more questions on the difference between the two.
Okay. All right. Let's chat after this meeting. Okay. We'll get you, because then I also had we also have the senior center would like a liaison. I know that's not necessarily for you, Emanuela, because you have a different idea, but If anyone's not necessarily connecting with their liaison position, the senior center would like to have someone. Summer.
Yeah, I've gone to like one meeting and like it's like a great council. I just don't feel like that I'm contributing that much, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, because you're doing the downtown. Okay. Is there anything that's interesting to you and that's going on in the community that you would have interest in?
I mean, yeah, if the senior center, like I would be open to that.
Okay, great. I'll do an email introduction with you and Judy.
Awesome. Yeah. If at any, if at any point anybody wants to switch, we want to make sure that everyone is totally comfortable and feels like, they're contributing as much as they can. Feel free to shoot Catherine or Jack an email or me. We just want everybody to be comfortable. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So Catherine, for the committees that I sent you, do we already have people on the youth council who are liaisons for those committees?
Yeah, so Yana is already on the Human Rights Commission, but the Cultural Council doesn't meet that often, and they decide on local grants, local cultural grants. So it wouldn't be a lot of work, but you could certainly do it. It just might not be kind of what you're thinking it might be.
If you want, I could do the senior center with Summer. I'm open to that.
Okay, we have a couple other. I'll send you a note because I'll want the two of you, other committees and boards and departments in town that don't have any liaisons, and you can kind of give me a feedback.
All right.
Description. So, and then I just got an email from Sherry, and we only have 2 applications so far for next year. So if you would like to reapply to the Youth Council, you can get those applications in.
Yeah, I believe those are due, I think April 31st. So there's still time, but I think the earlier the better. I know I still have to do mine, so I am a culprit of that. All right, so if nobody has any other liaison updates, Catherine, do you have any COVID updates for us with, vaccines or testing cases?
Massachusetts is doing an excellent job after a somewhat rocky start of getting those vaccines out, and the local health departments are no longer doing the vaccination clinics, but this week we've been doing the homebound vaccination. So anyone that can't leave their house is getting a nurse to come to them and vaccinate them, which is pretty awesome. Our rates are still high. I mean, they've come down from the highest part, but they've really plateaued and are creeping up a bit. So that's just a concern that we have. A lot of it's, family clusters, some from sports, but just to, one thing, because I do some contact tracing, a lot of people I've talked to recently thought they had allergies. So if you hear a friend say, oh, I'm congested, or I think I have allergies, definitely I'm a little concerned this time of year as allergy season kicks up that people won't recognize their symptoms early enough. So I think the Youth Action Team just put something out on their social media to get tested if you think you have allergies.
Yeah, it's super in tune it's very important to stay in tune with your body and kind of how you're feeling. And I think since the weather is a lot nicer outside, it's a great opportunity to, still wear masks and social distance, but it's a lot easier to, get together with a small group of people or a friend, walk the lake or something like that, just to get outside, get some fresh air. So just find those safe ways.
And I know some of you work in grocery stores or food, so you qualify for getting your vaccines now. So 16 plus can get vaccines. I know some of our high schoolers have already gotten their vaccines, which is great. So if you have any questions or anyone in your family has questions about signing up for the vaccine, you can call 211 or look at massvaccines.gov.
Awesome. Yeah, it's super exciting that, people our age are starting to get vaccinated. I feel like it's the beginning of the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's been one heck of a long tunnel. So It's very exciting. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to that? So keep an eye out, 16 and up, April 19th is the magic date to start looking. So yeah. All right. So the next item on the agenda is to determine the next meeting date. So if we stick with our 3-week schedule, that is Friday, April 16th. I know it's hard with spring sports or fall 2 sports. So if you can't make it, you can email Jack. And then if enough people can't make it, we can find another time that would work. But does that sound good to everybody?
Well, William, do you have track? Is that what you have going on?
Yes, I sent an email saying I couldn't make it, but
Yeah, no, I knew that.
Jack
So-
didn't seem to respond, so yeah, I just made it 10 minutes ago onto the meeting.
I know, I was impressed you came in. So Lauren, maybe we can pick because anyone with an afternoon sport like William would, and that's the Friday before school vacation too.
Oh, right. Yeah, maybe it's better to wait until after vacation. I feel like that might be a little bit hectic. Emmanuel, did you have something to add? Or you're doing
I'm pretty
volleyball,
sure-
right?
Yeah, I have physical therapy that day though.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah, we can talk to Jack about it.
Did you guys have any thoughts on like a Thursday night at 7:30 or 8?
I'm good on Thursdays.
Yeah, Jenna, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I think the week after that is the week that we go back into school full time. I'm not sure if that makes a difference, but
Yeah, that's important to know. Maybe we can send out one of those, I forget what they're called, but those forms, and you can kind of check off when you're free and when you're not free. There seems to be a lot of contributing factors. So I guess we'll hold off on that for now. So to be determined.
Yeah, I think the end of that week, because I think Jenna's right. That first week for all of you being back full time, you're going to be tired, and it's going to be I think it would be nice to meet before school vacation.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So yeah, we will figure that out. And then I think we just have anything else. Anybody has the floor? Any comments, questions? Anything? All right, I'm seeing none. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion.
Oh my goodness, my internet literally just had a stroke. Did somebody motion?
Emanuela.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second?
A second.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Emanuela,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
myself, yes. Nick,
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
Uma,
Yes.
Yana,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
and Jenna.
yes.
Awesome. It was great to see everybody. We had a very productive meeting today. It was awesome. Keep Jack in good thoughts for his job interview. It's very exciting. So keep an eye out on your email so we can figure out the next meeting date. Keep staying safe and wearing a mask, having healthy conversations about the election, and yeah,